Okay, well, we are, as I said, waiting for our third panelist who's obviously in practice at the moment, and so gives you some indication of how, how busy a life as an osteopath can be. So hello, everybody, and welcome to this Becoming Professional webinar. Each of the webinars in this series will give an overview of and insight into a particular career. And we're delighted today to introduce the career of osteopathy. I'm joined here with our panelists, Robert and Anna, and we are waiting for a third panelist, Takunda. I'll give them an opportunity in a moment to introduce themselves. But first of all, if you do have any questions or comments, then please do leave them in the chat box on your screens. We'll try and address anything as they come up during the course of the webinar, or we will address particular issues at the end, assuming that we have time. So please do that. Please do take advantage of that. So quickly, let me introduce Robert and Anna. Robert, perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself quickly, and then Anna.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name's Rob Thomas. I'm an osteopath. I've been in private practice about 25 years, and I've been working in clinical education for many years, 20 odd years, as a tutor and an examiner and a lecturer. So nice to be here. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Robert. Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna, and I'm a fourth year student at the European School of Osteopathy, hoping to graduate this year. So yeah, nearly at the end.
Thanks very much, Anna. And Takunda, thank you very much for joining, and sorry to hijack you in this way immediately as you join, but could you please just introduce yourself very quickly for the audience? And then we'll get into the meat of the webinar.
Yes, hello, I'm Takunda. I graduated from the British College of Osteopathic Medicine, which is part of the BCNO group last year, and I'm into my first year of practice.
Excellent, thank you. So first of all, Robert, could you tell us something about what an osteopath actually does, what it is that we are going to be exploring in more length over the course of the next 40 minutes or so?
Yes, absolutely. So thanks for giving us this opportunity, because osteopathy is, it's quite complex, sometimes can be quite difficult to explain and for people to get their head around exactly what it is we do. Essentially, we are highly trained musculoskeletal experts. We're allied health professionals in the eyes of NHS England, and have been for about nearly 6 years now. So MSK, that means musculoskeletal. So some people get to know us as kind of people that treat backs or necks, but we actually treat, it'd be quite surprising, we treat all elements of musculoskeletal complaints. So we treat all ages. So you might find osteopaths working with children, with babies, with teenagers. You might find osteopaths in sport. I work a lot with the elderly, and you get people working with maternity patients. So basically, it's a little bit more, quite a lot more than back pain and neck pain. We talk about a sort of tailored approach to healthcare. So we get to know the whole body. The whole patient. It's not just, we say it's not just about the ailment the person's come in with, it's actually getting to know the patient as a person. And so meaning that when we take a case history, we want to understand, you can see that curiosity and creativity is a good trait to have there. We want to find out, we want to communicate and strike a relationship with the patient. So we get a good understanding of how they use their body, all the things that have happened to them, any surgeries, any operations, any traumas, any falls. And then we bring that all into, it's like being a detective. That's what I love about it. It's quite sort of problem solving. You use your knowledge of anatomy and physiology, and you bring that all into play with your conversation with the patient. And then you run through a physical examination. So you've got to be quite adept using your hands, have an interest in working with people, working with your hands. You're working with the patient's anatomy, you're working with the patient's psyche. And that's what makes it such an interesting package. You may hear a few of us, if you ask us how we got into it, we often, I mean, we've maybe had sort of various interests. I was interested in sport, I did a degree in psychology, but it seems to be the perfect package that incorporates everything. So I decided to go down this route instead of going into medicine, for example. So we want people that are interested in anatomy and physiology. We get a lot of people that are come into osteopathy because of their interest with sport and how the body moves, human movement, biomechanics. It's great if you're a team member. You may find yourself working on your own in some practices, but an ability to communicate, have that curiosity, and also be willing to have some sort of individuality about you, because sometimes you may have to work independently. And it is a very responsible job, you know, so you've got to have that integrity and an ability to actually make decisions when needed. So the routes into osteopathy, you can see there that there's various routes in. What I would say straight away is, if you're interested, investigate further, speak to the admissions teams, the friendly admissions teams. We're interested in the passion of the person wanting to be an osteopath. And if gradings aren't quite there, we can maybe give people advice about other routes in that may actually supplement some of the stuff they may not have done at school. So traditionally, if you're looking at A-levels, we're looking at roughly 112 UCAS points. And obviously it is quite an in-depth course, as I'm sure Anna will tell you and Takunda will tell you. It's a 4-year course that's pretty full on, but incredibly interesting. And there's a heavy sort of, I suppose, scientific medical aspect to it. So yeah, ideally some science subjects, biology, physical education, psychology is accepted, sports science. So, but it's always worth ringing the admissions team. And just to give a bit of just an idea as far as the professional landscape, you see there 2 logos. You've got the Institute of Osteopathy, which is our professional body that works very hard for the profession, and the General Osteopathic Council. So just to let everyone know that we are a regulated profession. We've been regulated since 1993. So in the same way that you have the Medical Council, Dentistry Council. So that's an assurance to the general public that we are a regulated profession, and it gives some sort of credibility to us and what we do. Hope that gives is that sufficient there, Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Robert. I think that's really good. And I'm going to turn now to Anna and Takunda. And perhaps Anna, first of all, as you are currently a student, can you say a little bit about, you know, the question that Robert raised was, you know, how did you get into it? So tell us how you got into it. What brought you to this point?
Well, it was very like Rob said about the course kind of having all the aspects that I was looking for. So I have a sporting background, competitive sport while I was growing up. So I at first wanted to stay involved in sport. I was looking at things like physiotherapy, sports nutrition, sports massage, and there was just of each of those courses, there was something that wasn't completely pulling me. And then somebody suggested osteopathy to me, and I'd been aware of osteopaths as I grew up. And yeah, osteopathy looks at the body as a whole, and it really kind of had all the different aspects of each of those courses that drew me at first. And I mean, I entered wanting to stay more involved with sport, but there's so many different routes you can take with it as well, which I now know from being on the course, that, you know, plans can change as well.
Excellent. And Takunda, the same question to you. What was your initial interest in and drive to become an osteopath?
Yes, I've also got a passion for sports, similar like Anna, but not at a very competitive level. And a few years back, I injured my knee, and I decided to do a course in sport and remedial massage, which was over a year. And whilst doing that course, I realized that I wanted to do something more to do with the body, because it felt like the sport massage was not enough. And through that, I managed to start studying osteopathy, and here I am today.
Thanks for that. It's interesting that you both come at it from a sporting angle, but we don't want to put people off who perhaps don't have that in their background. And Anna, you're currently studying, if I'm right. So can you tell me and tell the audience a little bit about what that entails, and you know, it's ups and it's downs. We shouldn't sugarcoat too much.
No. I mean, it is a tough course. There's no getting around that. We learn so much anatomy, physiology. So, you know, the different structures in the body, how the body works, you know, how it might, you know, be affected for different conditions. We do learn so much. So there's no getting around that. You do need to put the work in. But it's such a rewarding course because we get to, you know, be hands-on with patients. We get to help patients get better. Which a lot of courses don't have that. And so we're really fortunate to be able to do that and to have the clinic as well that we're working in our 3rd and 4th years. So yeah, it's rewarding for sure. It's a difficult course, you can't avoid that. But you've got to work if you want something. So.
And what's the assessment structure like? Is it exams every year? Is it continuous assessment? What does that? What does that entail?
We have exams every year. It's generally kind of distributed throughout the year. I think it's kind of the end of each term. So we have about 3 terms. I think it has changed. Rob maybe will be more helpful with that. I think it has changed to semesters, so it's slightly different to when I was in my first year. But we do have quite a few exams, just to make sure at the end of the day we are treating the public. So you do need to make sure that we are up to standard. So we have exams, but as does any course, we have practical exams where our skills, like we'll have other students acting as our models and we'll be assessed practically, and we'll have anatomy exams, you know, assessing our core knowledge, to assess everything that we learn.
And what's the bit you enjoy most?
For me, clinic. So in 1st and 2nd years, we're observing in clinic. We have a certain amount of hours we need to meet, and in 3rd and 4th year, we're treating in clinic, so we get to be the practitioners. So I think really when you enter your 3rd year, you get to become the osteopath that you started the course to be. So for me, clinic is the most rewarding thing. The exams, of course, are stressful, but you get to help people be better. And a lot of the time people are coming because they just need to be listened to. So it's a really rewarding job in that we get to give people the time that they need, which not everyone can do.
So when you start to do the clinic, you're starting to actually do the job, and that's obviously very motivating. Yeah,
definitely.
Robert, Anna mentioned that things might have changed a little bit. Can you just perhaps just give us a sense of what's required over the course of those 4 years?
Well, basically the course is designed so that we're developing the practitioner from a novice, somebody who's not done anything necessarily, although we do get people that come in with knowledge they've maybe done, as Takunda said, they've done sort of diplomas, they've got other qualifications, and maybe health related. But generally we're starting from scratch and we're taking them through so that they graduate as autonomous practitioners. And the pre-clinic years are developed in such a way that we're preparing people for clinic. When they come into clinic in the 3rd year, there's a lot of supervision along the way, but very heavy supervision at the beginning of the 3rd year. And then as students get to where Anna is now, we're hoping, we're looking, we're seeing that they're discussing things, they're discussing their own thoughts more as an autonomous practitioner. So when you graduate, you actually do go into practice as an autonomous primary healthcare practitioner. So somebody may come off the street and consult you as the first point of entry.
So that takes me to Kunda. Obviously, you did the study, you've graduated, you're now working. So talk a little bit about what that transition from studying and then actually being, taking your first, live patients, as it were. How did you feel about making that transition?
Yes, it was a little bit daunting to begin with, Chris. And because as Anna alluded to, we started clinic in the 3rd year and the 4th year. So when we do graduate, we're ready to go and treat patients in the real world. But the difference being that whilst we're studying, we're supervised by experienced clinical tutors who are there to bounce off. So if you're not sure about anything, you've always got somebody to go to and ask, and they can help you. But once you're not practicing when you've graduated, it is a little bit mentally, it's a little bit difficult to get to grips with. You think, okay, I'm on my own. you've got to back yourself to know that you've been taught to a very high standard and that you can do it. So in the beginning, a little bit tricky, self-doubt, that sort of thing, because there's nobody to bounce off. So, but overall, it's 2-3 months into it, you just start doing what you've always done for the last 2 years. So yeah, tricky to begin with, but overall, all good.
Excellent. And so now, you're fully in the swing of things. So the question now is, what does a typical day feel like in the life of a qualified osteopath? And I know your answer will be there's no such thing as a typical day, but just give us a sense of what the kinds of things that you might be faced with on any given day.
Yes, there's of course we treating patients. So it's either you have a returning patient or you have a new patient who you've never seen before. So you always know your diary the day before. So you've got an understanding of how many patients you're going to have and what they're presenting, or if it's a new patient, you'll know when they come. So it's about listening to the patient. And I think when Rob put some of the literature at the beginning of having that want and connection with people and genuinely wanting to work with them, I think that's a start for any given day. And taking note-taking down, obviously ruling out any red flags, because sometimes patients present with what they may think is musculoskeletal complaints, but really it's something more systemic. And part of our training involves us being taught to identify when something is not of a musculoskeletal presentation. So yeah, it's a typical day, note-taking, always looking out for red flags. And yeah, simple as it sounds, but always giving your best, because every case is different. Oh, yeah.
And again, typically, how many patients might you be seeing, sort of have, on your books, as it were, at any one time?
Yes, on a day, on average, I see about 10 patients. And for me, as a rule of thumb, I don't want to see more than 12 patients, because sometimes it can get a bit, I wouldn't say not a bit much, but you always, like I said before, you always want to make sure that you're switched on and not miss anything important. So on average, about 10, but the maximum I'd see a day is 12, obviously with breaks in between. So it's not just like you take a lunch break, but you can also have, like, say, 4 patients, then you take a half-an-hour break, another 4, an hour break, another 4, then half-an-hour break. So with breaks in between.
And will many of your patients be on a long-term plan, or is it very often sort of short, sharp interventions? What's the kind of balance?
The kind of balance is initially, so say if I see a new patient, they're probably presenting with an acute problem. So I'll probably see them, say I see them today is a Tuesday, I'll probably see them again next week, and then I'll do a 2-week gap. So in the space of 3 weeks, I'll see them twice. And then usually we have, we then put them like on maintenance programs, or MOTs, if you like, where once every couple of months they just come for a checkup, where we do like what we call a general osteopathic treatment, looking at the whole body in line with the osteopathic philosophy. So to answer your question, yes, we get a bit of both, some short term, but the majority of the patients on my list are more maintenance patients.
And in your work, how do you liaise with or work with other health professionals, in the kind of ecosystem of health practice?
Yes, for me, mainly the ones that I work with at our clinic, we've got different surgeons that we work with. So say, for example, somebody comes in with a sore hip, and maybe after 2, 3, 4 sessions, it's not getting any better. And then you suspect that there might actually be something more underlying going there that needs more specialist attention. So we then refer to the surgeon that we work with. Or on the other hand as well, sometimes the patient comes in and then we think maybe it's systemic. We always refer back to the GP. So it's always important to have those connections. And even like, say, sometimes nutritionists, podiatrists, or different sort of network of where you can always signpost people if it's not within our remit.
Excellent, good, thank you, Takunda. So, Robert, you've got a 4th-year student and a relatively recent graduate. Where does the career lead for people who have started work? Where do they start? What's a middle career look like, and where could they end up? as it were?
It's a very good question. It's difficult to answer really because there are so many potential options. So somebody could graduate and they could start working in private practice as an associate, where they would agree a percentage with the principal. And some people are happy with that because they go there, it all works for them. They don't want the responsibility of a business. Somebody else might do that for a year or two, and then they may start their own business and then start taking on their own associates. And then they may start another practice and another practice, or they may build that, take on bigger premises, and have other practitioners, you know, sort of podiatrists, Pilates instructors. They may develop it into a studio, as a number of people have. So it depends how business minded you are. It depends on many factors. Also, there's lots of opportunities within the NHS now, more so than there ever used to be. So we have had some people that have been in private practice for many years, gained a lot of experience, and then gone into higher level positions in the NHS called, for instance, first contact practitioners. And they're more advanced practitioners that work out of GP surgeries. So if with a sort of triage system, they would see the people with musculoskeletal conditions and then refers to the GP as necessary. So there's lots of opportunities. And I think also the profession does lend itself to what's called, what's sometimes referred to as a portfolio career. So we've got people that have come into the profession that have been nurses, can think of a paramedic, and sometimes people continue these other jobs 1 or 2 days a week, and then they work in their own practice or work for somebody other days of the week. People may work for sports clubs. There's more opportunities at Premier League football clubs. I see are advertising for osteopaths more. So it's becoming a high profile, and there's lots of opportunities for specialism as well. You know, there's some people prefer to work more with children, babies. Some people work in women's health. There's so many opportunities because it has got quite a scope to it.
And you mentioned earlier in one of your slides that you talked about the regulator, there's a professional body, you've got the regulator within the regulated profession. Two things kind of spring to mind. Can you talk a little bit about what that regulation means, what that being a professional means, if you like, and are there requirements around continuing professional development and those sorts of things? So it might be worth just touching on those things if you could, Robert.
Yes, just working backwards, there is something called CPD, Continuing Professional Development, which the General Osteopathic Council, they require osteopaths to do. It's a 3-year cycle of 90 hours. So you have to do 30 hours per year over 3 years. And what's different about that from years ago is we work to a set of standards called the Osteopathic Practice Standards. And that is the infrastructure for just about everything. It's the infrastructure for a lot of our courses here. It's the infrastructure, it's the framework for our assessments. You've got four categories, which I won't bother going into, but the CPD has to relate to those 4 categories. It's communication and patient partnership, it's professionalism. It covers that whole range. So that's where the regulator, so in theory, the regulator is there to ensure high standards of osteopathic work, and also to act as a safeguard for the public as well.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Anna mentioned actually, which is, of course, it's about delivering a service to the public, and the regulator is there to protect the public's interests, really, isn't
Exactly.
that right?
Yeah. Whereas the professional body, the Institute of Osteopathy, obviously wants to maintain and improve standards, but that's more to develop the profession. And sometimes there's collaboration. There's quite a lot of collaboration between the two, with setting up things like interest groups, special interest groups, regional networks. So that's been an amazing thing really over the last probably 5-10 years, and that's been supported by the regulator as well.
So that's interesting that you mentioned those networks and the kind of community of osteopaths. So it'd be useful to get sort of Anna and Takunda's insight into kind of what is the professional support network, or the kind of professional peer-to-peer learning network like within the career, within the profession. Takunda, do you want to take that question first?
Oh yes, sure, Chris. I think for me, I'm quite fortunate in that. Rob mentioned that once you graduate, there's different avenues you can take for the NHS. You can go into private practice or set up your own practice. I'm fortunate enough that I now assist in teaching at the college that I graduated from. So I get support from the tutors, my former tutors who were there, and also from my former classmates. And the principal I'm working for now, even though I just knew her after I graduated, she's always there to mentor me as well. So, and that happens for a lot of new graduates whenever they join as an associate. Most principals are always good at mentoring, and yeah, that's where most of the support comes from.
Good. And Anna, I mean, I don't want to presuppose that you have a sort of network of other students who support you, but are there other networks that you take advantage of?
Oh, definitely. Students mainly. We're all learning the same things. We're all going through it together. So everyone is we're so much each other's support system. It's such a tight-knit community.
Okay.
You know, if people's exams don't go great, everyone is really there for themselves, for each other. At the same time, if it goes great, we're all happy for each other. It's such a community, and working in clinic, we're in teams of about 5. And we each have a tutor. So when we're working in the student clinic, we're working together constantly sharing ideas. And again, yeah, when I go to graduate, I know I'm going to be working in a place that they're already sending me messages, making sure I'm doing okay with my final exams, things like that. Everything has just been so supportive. I think especially if you really take care, be selective, really consider what you want to do graduating, choosing not just, you know, for money, but what is actually better for you and your development. I think there's a lot out there for you.
That's great. Now, you mentioned money. I didn't mention money, but I'm gonna ask Robert, and I know he'll be he will be cautious about this, but I think people are on the webinar and watching this will want to have some idea what the earning potential is in this career. So, can you paint that picture for us, please, Robert?
Yes. So, I mean, really, there's different ways of looking at it. You could look at an hourly rate possibly in private practice of about £45 to £130 an hour. But it depends where you work. It depends how often you work. It depends how many patients you see on an average day. It depends what agreement, if you are working in private practice, what agreement you have with the principal. Some people work on a 50-50 basis, some work on a 60-40. If you do more in the practice as far as administration, whatever, you might get a slightly better percentage. So, you know, all of those things matter. Fees in London to see an osteopath are a lot greater than other, you know, out in the suburbs or further out in the country, perhaps. And, you know, if you may want to see more than 10, 12 patients a day if your practice is busy enough. So some patients work on a half-an-hour list and they may actually see up to about 18 patients a day. So therefore, if you times that by whatever you're charging. But remember, if you are working, there's a good chance you're going to be working as a self-employed person. So that means you do need to be, you get taught about business planning and accounts, but you'd have to factor that in, that you have your expenses, you have your professional fees to pay, your insurance, so it's not all net profit in that respect. If you work for the NHS and you go in at say a band 7, then you're looking at about 40,000, about 41,000, and first contact practitioners, which I said are more advanced, probably people that have had more like 5 years experience, they're probably going to be earning up to about 50, maybe 53, 54,000 a year.
Okay, well, thanks, Robert. There's more or less wraps up all the questions that we had. I mean, there will be a moment to kind of put the gloss on top, but I don't know whether there've been any questions that have come in.
No, nothing.
Okay, well, there haven't been any questions. This webinar will be on our website for people to be able to watch. I just want to give Anna and Takunda a kind of final moment to say if they were having a drink or you know, perhaps watching sport, maybe together, maybe with other people, and somebody was expressing an interest, what would be your kind of pitch to them as to why this would be a great career option for them?
Chris, to answer your question, I'll definitely encourage them to go for it. I didn't tell you at the beginning, I'm a mature student, so I started osteopathy when I was at the age of 38. I had a totally different career, and I found my passion, which is now osteopathy at that late age, if you may call that in life. And that is the best decision I can truly say that I've made in my life. So anybody out there who's thinking about studying osteopathy and you're having doubts or whatever, I just encourage you to go for it, because it's a very rewarding career, not just for the financial aspect of it, but also because you get to work with people. And there's no such joy for me anyway, when patient comes in with an issue, with a problem, they're worried, you explain to them what's going on, you help them. That's so fulfilling. So anybody out there who wants to do osteopathy, go for it. It's a very, very rewarding career.
Thank you, Takunda. That, and Anna, I'm sure you can match that passion, but what would you say?
Well, I'm the opposite of Takunda, and I came straight from A-levels. But again, I would definitely recommend it. I think it's a very patient-centered profession. It's really rewarding being in a healthcare environment, helping to get people better. And yeah, giving people the time they need, helping people get better, to me, that is a perfect job. It's never going to be the same each day. It's definitely not going to be boring. And there's always going to be learning to do, whether you see that as a good thing or not. But I don't think you're ever going to be able to get bored with the profession. So I think that's a good point.
That's great. And Robert, assuming people watching this are interested in finding out more about, you know, how to study, where to study, how do people make that step?
There's I suppose the Institute of Osteopathy would be a good place. If you look at their website, I'm not exactly sure what their web address is, but all the schools, there's not many schools of osteopathy. There's only 7 providers within the UK. So the admissions teams are, I've worked and done work with most of them, and they're very friendly teams. And we're just interested in hearing from people that want to know a bit more. Anyone that's maybe interested in physiotherapy or even medicine, which was the route I was going down initially, just to have a look at osteopathy and explore it a little bit more, because it does hold all sorts of possibilities, and it may be more of an angle that you're looking for over and above something else. So yeah, just give the schools a call and the admissions departments, come to open days, do some work experience. Lots of the schools are getting on board now with more work experience. Listen to podcasts and YouTube videos and things like this. and yeah, and hopefully that will sort of enlighten people about what it is.
Great, thanks very much, Robert. That ends really the ground that we wanted to cover. So it remains only for me to say thank you to Robert and to Anna and to Takunda for their participation in this event. Thank you to everybody who's listening, and goodbye.